This is the story of the data they hide and the failures they cannot afford to publicize. Part 1. The Architecture of Silence. For more than a century, every major military power has built its image around technological superiority. From the first dreadnoughts of the early 1900s to the stealth aircraft of the Cold War, nations have invested enormous resources into the belief that technology can outpace threats indefinitely. But history tells a different story. For every triumphant innovation, there are others that stumbled under the weight of inflated expectations, faulty engineering, shifting doctrine, or political pressure. Yet these failures often leave almost no trace. To understand why, we must first examine the system that allows them to vanish. A complex network of classification rules, procurement incentives, political pressures, contractor interests, and institutional pride. These interconnected forces shape what the public sees, and more importantly, what it does not. 1. The culture of classification. In the modern military world, almost everything begins behind closed doors. Weapons programs often start with classification levels far beyond what ordinary civilians, or even many service members, are allowed to see. Defense planners argue this secrecy protects national security, shielding emerging capabilities from adversaries, and in many cases that's undeniably true. But classification also serves another function. It shields programs from scrutiny. Historically, internal evaluations of weapons systems have been some of the most brutally honest documents in existence. Engineers, analysts, flight test officers, and auditors often warn of looming failures years before a program hits the public spotlight. But when those reports are locked behind layers of clearance, only a handful of decision-makers ever read them. And when a system begins to falter, the default instinct in classified environments is to avoid a headline, not address the root cause. A retired Pentagon operational test evaluator once described the culture this way. Inside classified programs, failure doesn't mean the public learns something. It means the data never leaves the building. This pattern recurs throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. 2. Procurement. A game with different winners. To understand military failure, you must understand incentives. In theory, defense procurement is a merit-based system designed to reward the best design with the best performance at the best cost. In reality, procurement is shaped by a different set of forces. Companies compete for contracts worth billions. Politicians fight to protect factories in their districts. Senior officers often retire into defense industry roles. Budgets are locked years ahead before tests reveal the truth. Once a program reaches a certain size and political weight, it becomes too big to fail publicly. Canceling it would mean acknowledging mismanagement, wasted money, or flawed assumptions. So, rather than admit failure, programs continue quietly under restructuring, capability adjustment, or strategic realignment. The public reads none of these as failure. But inside the Pentagon's testing offices, the truth is often well known. The result is a system designed not to highlight failure, but to manage it invisibly. 3. When test data contradicts the narrative. One of the clearest examples of hidden failure comes from the world of aircraft testing. For decades, test pilots and engineers have produced brutally honest reports. These documents, many later declassified, show a recurring pattern. Aircraft failing to meet range requirements. Sensors performing worse than projected. Radar systems tracking fewer targets than expected. Weapons missing under real-world conditions. Maintenance times far above predictions. Flight envelopes more limited than advertised. Yet the public rarely hears about these issues when they happen. During the Cold War, similar patterns emerged in Soviet programs. According to declassified Warsaw Pact archives, Several major weapon systems, celebrated in state propaganda, suffered major reliability issues, but the state tightly controlled information, allowing failures to vanish into classified vaults. The lesson is universal. Militaries reveal success quickly, but reveal failure only when forced. 4. The history of silent failures. Some failures are well known today only because they were eventually declassified or exposed through careful historical research. Let's examine several cases, each illustrating a different way programs can collapse quietly. The A-12 Avenger II, the plane that never flew. The A-12 stealth bomber project, launched in the 1980s, was supposed to be the next leap in carrier aviation. Sleek, futuristic, triangle-shaped, and supposedly far stealthier than anything before it, the A-12 consumed billions in development. Officially, it was canceled due to cost overruns. But newly declassified documents reveal a more complex truth. The aircraft was overweight. The materials didn't meet stealth requirements. The radar signature was far larger than promised. Engineers could not solve persistent structural issues. The Pentagon didn't want headlines questioning its decision-making. Contractors didn't want their shortcomings revealed. So the A-12 was quietly buried, its prototypes destroyed, its failures hidden for years behind legal battles and classified filings. The Divine Eagle drone program, China. Chinese military sources and satellite imagery suggest that China's ambitious anti-stealth twin fuselage drone, once heavily publicized, may have suffered major aerodynamic problems. While never officially acknowledged, its sudden disappearance from state media speaks volumes. Analysts believe the design struggled with stability and wing stress under load. Again, a quiet fade-out replaced public explanation. The NATO drone Watchkeeper failure. The United Kingdom's Watchkeeper WK-450 drone program was designed to provide long-endurance surveillance, but spent over a decade plagued by technical issues, crashes, sensor malfunctions, and weather-related operational limits. For years, official reports downplayed issues. Only through parliamentary hearings did the public learn the truth. 5. The danger of national prestige. One of the most powerful forces that hides failure is national pride. When a weapon is portrayed as a symbol of national identity, leadership, or industrial capability, acknowledging failure becomes extraordinarily difficult. Prestige transforms systems into political symbols, and political symbols by their nature must not fail. This pattern has appeared in multiple nations' stealth aircraft programs, missile defenses, and classified space initiatives. A former intelligence officer once remarked, "Some programs don't fail because they're bad. They fail because the truth would embarrass too many powerful people." 6. Testing vs. reality, what happens in combat. A recurring theme in these hidden failures lies in the difference between a controlled test range and real-world combat. On the range, weather is predictable. Targets follow expected profiles. Maintenance teams are fully staffed. Engineers stand ready to diagnose issues. But in combat, dust blinds sensors. Heat degrades electronics. Enemy jammers disrupt communications. Real adversaries don't fly perfect patterns. Logistics falter. Pilots make split-second decisions under stress. Many advanced systems fail not because they were poorly designed, but because their design assumptions never matched real-world conditions. And when these failures appear in combat, militaries often restrict information, partly to protect operational security, partly to protect reputations, but also to protect procurement budgets. 7. The role of contractors and the progress report language. Defense contractors use a very specific language in their progress reports, phrases that may sound harmless but carry deep meaning. Some examples from declassified documents. Performance remains within acceptable margins. Operational envelope adjustments are being explored. Capability alignment in progress. Mission reliability projections under review. Integration challenges identified. Each of these often signals a deeper issue. Systems not meeting requirements, sensors failing in tests, software not integrating with older platforms, structural weaknesses, overheating or excessive power draw. But because these reports circulate only within controlled channels, the public sees none of it. 8. Why militaries can't always tell the truth. Some failures remain classified for legitimate reasons. A. Preventing adversaries from learning weaknesses. If a stealth aircraft is suffering from a radar signature problem, revealing that fact could allow adversaries to exploit it immediately. B. Avoiding diplomatic consequences. Weapon systems sold to allies may have flaws. Revealing them could damage relationships. C. Protecting industrial bases. If a major contractor suffers a high-profile failure, factories and skilled workers may be at risk. D. Maintaining domestic confidence. Governments rarely want voters to see billions wasted. These reasons, valid or not, create an environment where failure rarely reaches daylight. 9. The human impact of hidden failure. Not all consequences are financial or political. Many failures have direct human impact: pilots testing unstable aircraft, soldiers relying on unreliable gear, sailors on vessels with flawed systems, intelligence analysts working with incomplete data. Some of the most tragic training accidents have been tied to technical flaws that were known internally, but not addressed quickly enough. A former U.S. Navy aviator described the emotional toll. When you strap into a prototype, you trust that the engineers told the truth. When they didn't or couldn't, you're the one who pays the price. 10. The cost of silence. The consequences of hiding failure ripple outward. Budgets balloon as flawed systems receive endless fixes. Troops in the field suffer from equipment that doesn't perform as advertised. Allies lose trust when shared systems underperform. Rivals learn lessons faster because they confront failure directly. History shows that the most technologically advanced nations often suffer from overconfidence, believing that cutting-edge systems can substitute for simple, rugged reliability. Meanwhile, adversaries who learn from their failures, openly or secretly, adapt more quickly. A military historian once noted, "Victories build pride, failures build competence, but only if the failures are admitted." 11. A pattern repeats across decades from early Cold War jets to present-day missile defenses. A recurring pattern emerges. A program begins with grand ambitions. Budgets grow. Testing reveals unexpected problems. Reports become classified. Contractors promise fixes. Schedules slip. Capabilities are quietly reduced. The program ends without clear explanation, and through it all, the public hears little, until decades later, when historians sift through declassified records to uncover what really happened. 12. The case studies to come. In the next parts of this documentary, we will examine several of the most significant quiet failures in modern military history. Cases where programs didn't merely underperform, but collapsed under the weight of secrecy, unrealistic expectations, or internal conflict. The Cold War stealth crisis. No one talked about. The missile defense failures hidden behind optimistic tests. The drone programs that vanished after early hype. The naval systems too flawed to deploy. The sensors that couldn't survive real combat environments. The aircraft that were too advanced for their own era. We will look at how these failures happened, who warned about them, who ignored the warnings, and how lessons were learned or forgotten. because behind every silent failure lies a story of people, politics, pressure, and the unspoken tension between truth and ambition. And that tension sets the stage for our next chapter.